Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best weapon enchantments in Oblivion Remastered. Some of these are extremely powerful by multiplying in their effectiveness, so I'll be breaking down all of this in this video. And there are some weapons that you just can't make with enchantments, which I'll also be covering in this video, so they're only available from loot. But the first one we're going to get into, this is going to be the strongest enchantment here because what it does, it actually multiplies in its effectiveness. So we're going to start with a grand soul in one of these weapons here, and we want to do a few different things first. It's not a bad idea to put Soul Trap for 1 second on pretty much everything because it doesn't have a very high cost, but we'll start with that there. And then we're going to get into using elemental damage types like adding in fire damage. So with this, we can put it to a magnitude of like 10. We're going to use multiple different elemental damage types because if we were to do like, let's say 30 of fire, it's actually cheaper for us to do 10 of each elemental damage. So we'll do that for 1 second there. So fire damage on strike, and go ahead and do the same with frost damage as well. Apply it as shock. Make sure all these are magnitude of 10 for 1 second. So we got all of these here. So yeah. Next, the order of operations here. It's kind of like a math problem. We're going to be using the weakness to Magicka. So we're going to go weakness to fire here. We're going to crank it up, and you can see it doesn't actually cost that much more to go all in on this for 1 second. So we'll do the weakness to fire, weakness to frost, and a magnitude of 100, and then weakness to shock, magnitude of 100. So it should look like this: soul trap, fire damage, shock damage, weakness, weakness, weakness. Now the magic sauce, the secret sauce here, we're actually going to put weakness to Magicka, crank that all the way up. You see, again, it doesn't really impact it. You get 4 less swings of the weapon, but this is what's magic about it. The weakness to magic will actually keep multiplying this. So every time that we strike, we're going to continue to deal more and more damage. And I'll show you exactly how powerful this can be. So soul trap, 10 points of each damage. You can go with the cheaper cost. So if you want to do like 7 or 5, you can round that down a little bit. All of the weaknesses, and then weakness to magic. And we're going to create this doom blade, if you will, and we'll show off how powerful this is. So if we're going against an enemy here, you can see our first few strikes don't do too much, but it continues to power itself up until you basically one-shot anyone that you're going against. So again, you can see not super impactful to start, but it scales up and it scales up and it scales up, and it'll melt pretty much anybody. That's because whenever we're using the ×1 enchantment, it's going to continually stack up extra damage on each successive strike so that we can just continually melt enemies. Now the 1 second is important because on a dagger, it attacks every 9/10 of a second, so we're going to constantly be refreshing that. And one of the only things that can really counter us is the Storm Atronach. But even with this, you can see we can shred them down extremely fast. They do have a shock resistance, and they're the only thing in the game to have a shock resistance. But yeah, that shredded everything down really quickly, and this works very powerfully against anyone else. This does make the game feel a lot easier. It does run out of its charges pretty quickly as well. You're only at 25 hits, but it drains everyone, and it'll constantly be refilling your soul gems, so it's endless. If we want a weaker version of this with more attacks, we're just going to do our soul trap for 1 second there. That's always something nice to have. It doesn't add up any extra too badly. And you can either go with the shock damage or fire damage. Shock damage is a little bit more costly, but we'll go with, let's say, like 10 points, or even like a lower amount is fine too. Let's go 7 here for 1 second. And then we're going to go weakness to shock here, maximum magnitude here, and then finally the weakness to Magicka full on there. So this has 66 strikes, and we can enchant that, and you can see here it's going to be pretty strong still. Not as strong as the last blade because the last one did some serious work, but you can see here we're getting a good amount of damage in, so this can be something a little bit more manageable if you wanted to use a weapon that's extremely strong. Like, this is only 7 points of shock damage, but it just hits so hard with each consecutive strike. So you can continually use weapons like this that'll make the game a little easier. That's only 7 points of shock damage. Now, if we wanted a less OP version that's just basic, we could go with like 5 points of fire damage and then 5 points of frost damage for 1 second. I don't like to do anything higher than a second unless you're using a claymore. Then 2 or 3 seconds can work fine, as when you attack, it's just going to continually be spiking the damage after that 1 second is over. So this is a bit more cost effective for 15 points. You got each of the elemental damage types. You got 100 uses. If you really want to jack that up, you just go weakness of Magicka, and you always want to put this at the very end. So this has 64 uses. It's not going to be as effective as the previous weapon that we used, but if you like a bit more of the extra attacks and something like that, you could also go with it, or you can also just remove that, as it's more cost effective this way. Another fun way to go about doing this is a drain health to a magnitude of 100. So you get normally 50 uses with this drain health. And then we're going to use, again, the weakness to Magicka. Make sure this is at the very end. It only reduces it by 11 swings of your weapon. So this is extremely effective, and it's going to be our one-shot blade. So getting into a fight with this weapon here, it's going to do a bit of damage. Now you got to be mindful that this is going to continue getting stronger over time. You got to keep attacking or else the effect wears off. But you saw there, it's not going to be the same as the other one where it's just constantly draining their health, but they get a little bit of the reduction in their health, and then if you hit a few more times, it's going to take them out. So this is a higher risk, high reward, because if you go one attack like that, and then one attack like that, and then continue doing it like this, you're not going to be able to take them out. Like you can see there, the damage is not crazy. But then if we go in and spam it, that's enough to take them out. So that weakness to Magicka really does amp up the effectiveness of this blade. If you wanted to apply an effect like this to a claymore, what we got to do first is make sure that we have we make sure the timing is right on this. So if we were to, let's say, do a bit of fire damage on this, we could do like 10, magnitude of 10 over 2 seconds due to the attack timing on this, and then go ahead with our weakness to fire 100% over 2 seconds again, because that's how long it takes for us to swing. These do stack up if you keep doing it. And then finally, we got 45 uses. Weakness to Magicka puts us down to 36, but these are going to hit extremely hard. And then we can also put this up to 2. And again, to show it off here, we got our sword, and you can notice that it does swing a lot slower, and this is going to make it a little bit more challenging. But every time that we keep hitting it, you see there, it's continually stacks up damage further and further. So that makes it actually pretty useful. The 2 seconds on the claymore works perfectly, and it keeps the cost relatively low. You can also put soul trap on that one too. One of the strongest enchantments in my mind is the Transcendent Sigil Stone, though. You have to go to Oblivion Gates to get this. Why this is so powerful is it actually buffs up both our Magicka absorption as well as the Fortify Magicka. This is the only way that we can get a 50 point on each of these. So what you can do is you can put this on a dagger, and every strike that you do is going to absorb 50 Magicka, which is a ton. You could also go ahead and put this onto a bow, and you can steal Magicka while slinging away at your spells. On top of all this, you can put this on your armor to fortify your Magicka. You can get like a plus 250, which is an incredible amount of Magicka, and then put it on a weapon that's going to steal back Magicka. So for example, if we wanted to cast a bunch of Magicka spells, we could go with like a bow here, absorb Magicka on strike, 50 points, and you can use this using soul gems. It's just not going to be as strong, but still plenty strong. So let's say you get yourself into a fight here and you cast a spell of speed that increases your overall speed, and you want to replenish your Magicka. So you go ahead here, and we're just going to fire our bow. With the extra speed, we can backpedal away from anyone. And we got the Paralyze strike off perfectly. And you can see we got our Magicka back. So then we can go ahead with casting our spell again that uses up all of our Magicka, and then steal it back from this target. I like to use any Fortify speed because you can literally use this to kind of cheese the game using some custom spells. I did post a video of some of the best custom spells that you can make because there's some pretty cool ways to cheese around with this game. And I love getting that T-pose from the Paralyze off on enemies. Super fun. So yeah, you can see here we're getting all of our Magicka back, so we can then use our powerful spells again. This is great too if you have like a chameleon spell that gives you full invisibility, because you can just run around regaining your Magicka and taking the enemy out just like that. Another thing, if we want to enhance our bow with something like the elemental damage from earlier, we would do it over a course of 3 seconds, just because it takes a couple seconds to knock an arrow and then to shoot it off. And you got to be very sure of your aim if you're going to run this, because it's not like a dagger where it's a lot easier to land those consecutive shots where it gets most of its power. Now this weapon you actually can't enchant yourself. Paralyze is extremely powerful. However, you can find it as random loot, so I just want to cover it here because the dagger of paralysis, to me, a Daedra dagger, is absolutely insane. So if we had an enemy here that we're fighting, boom, you can paralyze it, and then even though it's only like 2 seconds, the thing is, whenever they stand back up, you're likely able to just keep hitting them over and over again. I think this is one of the funniest and one of the best weapons because, yeah, they don't stand a chance against you, and sometimes the ragdoll physics are hilarious where you can just knock them off of a cliff down into the Oblivion City. Yeah, this one just, it feels, you feel bad almost using a weapon like this where they get locked up like that every time that you strike them, but it's all good and well and fun. So yeah, this is another one. Obviously not as strong as the one that's able to completely one-shot enemies, but paralyzing targets is also really effective of a strategy. So those are some of the best weapon enchantments in Oblivion Remastered. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and give this Storm Atronak a big hug. We'll see y'all in the next video.